When I looked at my mother sleeping, I realized there was only one way to stop those lessons in front of the mirror. That night, the reflection of so much suffering finally shattered. And after that silence, no one ever knew what really happened to me. Good afternoon to all of you, my dear friends. What a joy to be able to chat with each one of you watching from the other side. I'm Eleanor Thompson, 76 years young, and I live in this peaceful little town called Mayfield, here in Virginia. Such a beautiful town, you know? Full of history and rolling hills as far as the eye can see, just like the sparkling eyes of my grandchildren when I tell them my stories. These days, my greatest joy is taking care of my family. I have 3 wonderful children and 7 grandchildren who are the light of my life. Every Sunday is sacred. They all come to my house, and I prepare a special meal. The table gets so full we can barely fit everything. And afterward, while the children play in the backyard, we sit on the porch, drink some coffee, and talk about life. It's during these moments that my heart feels so warm, you know? This tradition began shortly after my Harold, God rest his soul, left this world. It's been about 12 years now. In the beginning, loneliness hit hard. The house felt so empty that I could hear even the ticking of the living room clock echoing. It was my oldest daughter, Clara, who had the idea. "Mom, Sunday is your day now. We'll all come have lunch at your place." And so it was. First just her with the kids, then my other 2 children started coming too, and it became our sacred moment. I'm sitting here in my living room, in this rocking chair that belonged to my mother-in-law. I have some crochet work on my lap, but today I've set it aside to chat with you all. The curtains are lace, made by me. The ceiling fan turns slowly, keeping away the afternoon warmth. From here, I can see the garden through the window, where I planted colorful dahlias that my youngest grandson helps me water every day. And you, my dear friends watching me now, tell me in the comments, which town are you watching from? And what time of day did you find this video? Was it early morning with coffee, after lunch, or already evening with a nice cup of tea by your side? I always read all the comments and feel so happy knowing where you're from and when you take time out of your day to listen to this grandma's stories. Let me know, okay? Let's create a chain of kindness. Today, I want to share with you a story that almost nobody knows. A story about mirrors, reflections, and how sometimes we need to break certain cycles to move forward. About how I learned the hard way that our worth isn't found in the reflection others see in us. You know, my dears, I wasn't always this grandma with the big smile on her face. There was a time when I couldn't even look in the mirror without crying. I was born in Millsville, a small town in West Virginia, about 200 miles from where I live now in Mayfield. It was a small house with whitewashed walls and a dirt floor at the end of Main Street. There was a large backyard with apple and cherry trees that my father planted when I was very little. My father, Albert Thompson, was a quiet man who worked in the coal mines and left before sunrise. He would return late in the evening, always with that golden dust stuck to his boots. My mother, Catherine Thompson, was a, how can I say this, different woman. Beautiful. Very beautiful indeed, with long black hair and green eyes that looked like 2 emeralds. But she had a strange way of looking at people, as if she was always judging. She hardly ever received visitors at home. She would say that the women in town were too jealous, and that the men were all no good. She would spend hours and hours in front of the large mirror in their bedroom. It was an antique mirror with a carved wooden frame that had belonged to her mother. "The only treasure I have," she would say. My family was small. I only had one brother, John, who was 2 years older than me. He left home early, at 16, went to work in Pittsburgh, and never really came back. He would send a letter now and then call on important dates. Today, he's gone. Poor thing, had a heart problem about 15 years ago. The routine in my childhood was simple. Wake up early, help my mother fetch water from the well, sweep the yard, feed the chickens. Then I'd go to the local school, which was about a 20-minute walk away. I remember the teachers, especially Mrs. Jackson, who had the patience to teach me to read, even when I couldn't quite understand the letters. I was a shy, quiet girl. I liked to stay in the corner, drawing or making up stories with the cloth dolls my Grandma Judith made for me. The games from that time were so different from today, weren't they? We played hopscotch on the dirt ground, jacks with colorful stones we collected from the creek, hide and seek between the fruit trees. My best friend was Irene, daughter of the washerwoman who lived near the creek. We would make pretend meals with leaves and mud. Oh, how I miss that time of innocence. Sometimes we would go to Millsville Creek, take off our shoes, and dip our feet in the cool water while telling ghost stories to each other. But at home, things were different. When my father wasn't around, and he was almost never around, my mother changed. It was as if she became another person. Her eyes would get darker, her voice lower, colder. "Eleanor, come here," she would call, and I would already feel that chill in my stomach, that urge to run, to hide. I think it all started when I was about 6 or 7 years old. My mother would always say that I could have been pretty if I weren't so plain. She said I had taken after the bland features of my father's family, that my hair was lifeless, that my nose was too big for my face, that I walked crooked, spoke incorrectly, laughed too loudly. Everything about me seemed to bother her. In our house, as I said, there was that large mirror in my parents' bedroom. It was a mirror that had been in her family, a relic that my mother cared for more than anything else. She cleaned it every day with a soft cloth and alcohol. Nobody could touch it or even go near it. But when she was angry with me, when I did something that didn't please her, and almost everything I did didn't please her, she would take me in front of that mirror. It was a kind of, how can I say, ritual. "Come see what you are," she would say, dragging my little arm forcefully. And she would place me in front of that huge mirror, force me to look. "Do you see that girl there? She's ugly when she cries. She gets even uglier." And she would pinch my little arms, pull my hair, all while forcing me to look. "Now smile, smile. It's still ugly. You can't even smile properly." At school, the teachers noticed I was different. "That girl is very quiet," they would say. Back then, no one talked about bullying, psychological abuse, those things. It was all normal, you know? It was just her mother's way. She's demanding. My third-grade teacher, Mrs. Ellis, was the only one who seemed to notice something was wrong. Occasionally, she would call me after class, give me a piece of cornbread, and ask if everything was okay at home. I always said yes, of course. What else could I say? And that's how my childhood passed, between the terror of that mirror and the search for hiding places. I knew every corner of the house, every place where I could stay when I heard her footsteps approaching. Under the bed, behind the apple tree, in the small cellar where they kept my father's tools. I learned to walk without making noise, to eat without making noise, to exist without making noise, until I turned 13 and things got even worse. That's when I realized I was growing, changing, and my mother noticed too. 13 is a difficult age for any girl, isn't it? The body changes, feelings get all jumbled up. In my case, it was even worse. I remember the exact day when everything started to get more intense. It was March 1962. I had just gotten my first bra, a simple thing that my Aunt Betty had given me behind my mother's back. "Every young lady needs to be prepared," she said. I kept it under my mattress, would put it on at school and take it off before coming home. But that day, I forgot to take it off. I came home distracted, thinking about the essay that Mrs. Leonard had praised in front of the whole class. It was the first time anyone had said I was good at something. I entered through the kitchen door, and there was my mother sitting at the table with that expression I knew so well. "What is that you're wearing?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. I looked down and saw the bra strap showing at the collar of my uniform blouse. My heart raced. It's a bra, Mom. Aunt Betty gave it to me." I'll never forget what happened next. She got up slowly, like a mountain lion preparing to pounce, and came toward me. "So you're already wanting to become a woman? Already wanting to attract men's attention, just like that tramp of an aunt of yours?" She grabbed me by the arm and dragged me to her bedroom. The mirror seemed bigger that day. Darker, as if it knew what was going to happen. "Take off your blouse," she ordered. I was shaking so much I could barely unbutton it. "So you think you're a young lady now? That you already have a body to show off?" And she began that ritual that I knew, but in a different, more cruel way. She would turn me to one side, then the other. She would point out every flaw she found. "Look at that crooked shoulder, that small chest, that blotchy skin. Who do you think will look at you?" I felt the tears coming down, but I had already learned to cry silently, without sobbing, without making noise. "You crying makes you even uglier. You're not even good at crying." It was on that day that something changed inside me. A part of me disappeared, as if it had been torn away. And another part, a cold and hard part like stone, began to grow in its place. School, which had once been my refuge, became difficult too. The other girls started to fix themselves up, put on lipstick in secret, whisper about boys. I continued to wear the same baggy clothes, the same hair tied in a tight bun that my mother would make. "So you don't look like you're offering yourself," she would say. There was a 4th of July picnic in 1964. I was 15. Mrs. Matthews, the literature teacher, insisted that I participate in the square dance. "You're a smart girl, Eleanor. You need to socialize more with others." She even lent me a dress, red with white polka dots, that belonged to her daughter. I tried it on secretly in the school bathroom. It was the first time I had worn something colorful, something pretty. I looked in the small bathroom mirror and for a second didn't recognize the girl who was there. She seemed normal, like the others. On the day of the picnic, I snuck out of the house. I said I was going to do a project at the library. My mother was busy with her own things, hardly paid attention. I went to school, changed clothes in the bathroom, and for a few hours, I was just a girl like any other. I danced, laughed, even ate a piece of corn cake. A boy, Christian, the pharmacist's son, even asked me to dance to a slower song. It was magical. For those few hours, I forgot everything. Forgot about the mirror, forgot about my mother's words, forgot even who I was. But the magic ended quickly. When I got home, already getting dark, my mother was at the door. Someone had seen me at the picnic and told her, "So this is how you do schoolwork? Showing yourself off to boys like some cheap girl?" This time, the mirror session was the worst of all. She tore the dress that the teacher had lent me. "Now you'll have to explain to your teacher what kind of tramp she's raising." Then she took a pair of scissors and cut my hair unevenly in yanks. "Now you'll learn not to show off." That night, lying in bed, looking at the ceiling, with my hair ruined and my heart broken, something happened inside me. A small voice, deep down, began to speak. "This cannot go on forever," the voice said. "One day, this will end." My father, when he found out what had happened, just lowered his head. "Your mother only wants the best for you," he mumbled, without looking me in the eyes. It was the last time I asked him for help. I realized I was alone. The next 2 years were a silent hell. The mirror sessions happened almost every week. Any excuse would do: a low grade at school, a look that she interpreted as insolent, a laugh that she thought was vulgar. I didn't even fight anymore. I would just stand there, staring at the reflection in the mirror, that girl I didn't recognize, with empty eyes and skin marked by pinches. My social life was non-existent. I had no friends, didn't go anywhere except school and church, always under my mother's watchful eye. The neighbors would comment, "Mrs. Thompson's daughter is so strange, so quiet. Poor thing, so plain." Her words had become truth. I was exactly what she said I was. I had a small notebook hidden inside the mattress where I wrote sad poems, dreams of escape, drawings of places far from there. It was the only place where I truly existed. When I turned 17, something happened that changed everything. Christian, the same boy from the 4th of July picnic 2 years earlier, began to wait for me at the school exit. He had moved away with his family for a while, but now he was back. "I thought about you all this time," he said, with a shy smile. "That girl in the red dress." We began to meet secretly at the town library. It was a safe place. My mother would never go to a library. We would talk about books, about dreams. He wanted to be a doctor. He said I was intelligent, that I should go to college too. For a few afternoons, in that quiet corner between the dusty bookshelves, I dreamed of a different future. Until one day she found out. She found a note from him in the pocket of my skirt. "Meet you tomorrow at the usual place. Can't wait to see you smile again." See. What happened that night was the beginning of the end. She dragged me to the bedroom, in front of the mirror, as always. But this time, her words were different. More venomous. "Do you really think he likes you? That anyone could like you? He only wants one thing, and when he gets it, he'll throw you away like the trash you are." And then she said the words that broke something inside me. "You're just like me. You'll end up like me. One day you'll look in the mirror and see only a bitter old woman that nobody ever truly loved." It was at that moment, looking into her eyes through the reflection, that I realized she didn't hate me because I was ugly or awkward. She hated me because I had what she didn't have, a chance to be different, to escape that cycle. And she couldn't bear that. After that night, things changed in a way I never imagined they could change. My mother, as if she had realized she was losing control over me, became even more vigilant. She wouldn't let me leave the house except to go to school, and even then, she started taking me and picking me up every day. "To make sure you don't meet with that boy," she would say. She went to school and talked to the principal, Mrs. Larson. She said I was having inappropriate behavior and asked that they change my classroom away from Christian. The principal, of course, granted her request. In those days, parents' words were law. She also asked that I no longer visit the town library. "Books fill the head with nonsense," she told the principal in front of me. "She already has too many ideas." At home, the mirror continued to be my daily tormentor. But now my mother had a new discourse. "You think that boy would want someone like you? Look at this lifeless hair. Look at this spotted skin." She would grab my chin forcefully, turn my face from one side to the other. "He was just playing with you, testing to see how far you would let him go." The worst wasn't the pinches or the occasional slaps. It was that voice, those words that entered like needles and stayed there, pricking from within. It was seeing in her eyes, through the reflection, a sick satisfaction at seeing me diminished, as if my pain fed something inside her. My father, at this time, was already sick. Black lung disease, common among coal miners, had begun to affect his lungs. He spent most of his time sitting on the porch, looking at the horizon and coughing into that handkerchief that was always stained with blood. When I tried to tell him what was happening, he just shook his head. "Your mother had a difficult life, child. She just wants to protect you." But his eyes said something else. They said he knew, and that he couldn't or wouldn't do anything about it. The mirror sessions became longer, more elaborate. Sometimes they would last hours. She would make me try on her old clothes, would put on bright red lipstick, deliberately applied beyond the limits of my lips, and would laugh. "See? This is what men will think of you if you continue offering yourself. A clown, a ridiculous thing." Christian tried to reach me a few times. He sent messages through classmates, even appeared at my house once. My mother received him with such coldness, with such harsh words, that he never came back. Afterward, she made me sit in front of the mirror again. "See how easily he gave up? That's because what he said was worth nothing. No man is worth anything." I began to wither away. I wasn't hungry, didn't sleep well. I lived in a constant state of alert, always waiting for the next attack, the next humiliation session. My grades at school, which had always been good, began to fall. The teachers noticed the change, of course, but nobody did anything. "Problems at home," they would say among themselves, Teenage stuff. The only person who still tried to help me was Mrs. Matthews. She called me after class one day. "Eleanor, what's happening? You were one of the best students." I started crying right there in the empty classroom. She hugged me, and it was the first time in years that I felt a gentle touch. I told her a bit of what was happening. Not everything, but enough. She listened in silence, her eyes getting sadder and sadder. When I finished, she held my hands. "This is not normal, Eleanor. It's not right. Your mother, she needs help." Then she offered me a way out. "I have a sister in Richmond. She can take you in for a while until you finish your studies. I can help you go there." For a brief moment, I felt a hope so strong that it almost suffocated me. But then I remembered reality. "My mother will never let me," I said, the tears drying on my face. "She'll find me, bring me back." And then I didn't need to finish the sentence. Mrs. Matthews understood. "Think about it," she said. "The offer stands. You deserve a better life than this." That conversation lit a small flame inside me, a possibility I hadn't seen before. There was a world out there. There were good people. There was a chance. But when I got home that day, my father was having a severe attack, coughing up blood, unable to breathe properly. The neighbor, Mrs. Evans, had called the doctor. Dr. Wilson, a serious man with thick glasses, examined my father right there in the living room. "He needs to go to the hospital in Pittsburgh," he said. "The condition is advanced." My mother, who normally showed no emotion whatsoever, seemed to be in panic. "And how are we going to pay for that? You know we don't have money." It was at that moment that I realized something I had never understood before. My mother, despite everything, loved my father, in her twisted way, but she loved him. She spent the entire night sitting by his bed, holding his hand, murmuring words I couldn't hear. The next morning, my father passed away. Quietly, during his sleep, as he had lived his entire life. I was in the kitchen preparing some tea when I heard my mother's scream. A scream that didn't seem human, that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. The funeral was simple. A few neighbors, the local pastor, some colleagues from the mine. My mother remained silent the whole time, dry eyes, her face like a mask. My brother John couldn't come or didn't want to, I never knew for sure. When we returned home, I thought things would get even worse, that my mother would take out on me all the pain she was feeling. But, to my surprise, she locked herself in her room and didn't come out for 3 days. She only accepted the food I left at the door, and even then, barely touched it. On the 4th day, when she finally came out, she seemed like another person. Older, thinner, more empty. She sat at the kitchen table and looked at me as if she saw me for the first time. "You have his eyes," she said, almost in a whisper. It wasn't an accusation, nor a compliment. It was just a statement. For a few weeks we had a silent truce. She hardly spoke, spent most of her time sitting in the rocking chair on the porch, staring into nothingness. The mirror sessions stopped. I began to breathe a little more relieved. Maybe, I thought, my father's death had broken that sick cycle. Until a letter arrived. From the bank, informing about the small pension that my father was entitled to because of the occupational disease. It wasn't much, but it was guaranteed money every month. And there was also the matter of the house. My father had managed to buy it years ago. It was ours. It was as if a switch had been turned on inside my mother. That same night she came to my room. She was wearing a dress I had never seen, a beautiful dress, deep blue. She had put on lipstick, combed her hair. She seemed almost happy. "Come with me," she said, in an almost gentle tone. I followed her to her room, with a knot in my stomach. The mirror was still there, imposing, silent. "You know," she began, as she looked at herself in the mirror, fixing her hair, "I was very beautiful when I met your father. All the young men in town wanted me." She smiled at her own reflection, a smile she never directed at me. "But I chose your father because I thought he had a future, that he would take me away from here, take me to the city." She turned to me, and that smile disappeared. It was the biggest mistake of my life. That's when she said the words that changed everything. "Now that your father is gone, I'm going to start over. I'm going to sell this house, take the pension money, and leave this place. I always wanted to live in Pittsburgh." She approached, touched my face in a way that seemed almost affectionate, but her eyes were cold. "And you, my daughter, will stay with your Aunt Betty. I've already talked to her. It's better this way. I was never good as a mother anyway." At that moment, a mix of emotions flooded me. Relief that she was leaving, fear of abandonment, anger that she was simply discarding me like this. But above all, a strange feeling that something was wrong. "The house was Dad's," I said, surprised by my own courage. "Half of it is mine by right." Her face changed in an instant. The mask fell. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed between her teeth. "After everything I did for you, I raised you practically alone. Your father was never here. And now you want to steal the little I'm entitled to?" And then began the worst mirror session of all. She dragged me in front of it, as so many times before. But this time there was something different in her eyes. Something that went beyond the usual cruelty. There was desperation. "Look at you," she screamed, holding my arm so tightly that it left purple marks. "You think you can survive on your own? You think anyone will want you? You are nothing without me. Nothing!" And as she screamed, something happened. In the reflection, I saw not just her and me. I saw 3 generations of women trapped in the same cycle. I saw my grandmother, whom I never knew, but whom my mother always described as a hard woman. I saw my mother, consumed by bitterness and frustration, and I saw myself about to become like them. It was at that moment, looking at our intertwined reflections in that old mirror, that I made my decision. That cycle had to end, and there was only one way to end it. That night, after the mirror session, I couldn't sleep. I lay looking at the ceiling of my room, feeling every muscle in my body ache, not just from the new bruises, but from years of accumulated pain. Her words echoed in my head. "You are nothing without me. Nothing." Through the crack in the door, I saw when she left the house. It was almost midnight. She had put on a nice dress, applied perfume. She got into Sam's car, a widowed merchant who lived on the other side of town. They would go out together occasionally, always in secret, always at night. When I heard the car moving away, I got up. My legs were shaking. I went to her room, turned on the light. The mirror was there, as it had always been, large and silent, keeping all the secrets of that house. "I won't be like her," I told my reflection. "I won't continue this cycle." I opened her wardrobe. At the bottom, under some boxes, I found what I was looking for, the bank passbook, where my father's pension was registered. I also found a small wooden box, where she kept the jewelry she rarely wore. There weren't many, nor very valuable, but they were something. I took the passbook and the jewelry. It wasn't stealing, I told myself. It was my inheritance. It was what my father would have wanted me to have. I went back to my room and packed a bundle with my few clothes, the little notebook of poetry, a photo of my father that I kept hidden. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. When I was almost finished, I heard the car coming back. My heart froze. It was too early. Normally, she only returned at dawn. I heard raised voices, her and Sam arguing. "You promised you would help me with the money," she shouted. "You said that when the old man died." "Shut up, Catherine," he replied. "The neighbors will hear. I didn't promise anything. You misunderstood." The door slammed hard. I heard her footsteps entering the house, heavy, irregular. She had been drinking. You could tell by the way she dragged her feet. I hid the bundle under the bed and pretended I was sleeping. She went straight past my room, slamming her bedroom door so hard the whole house shook. For another hour, I lay in bed, waiting, listening. The sounds decreased. First, she cried, then cursed, then silence. When I was sure she had fallen asleep, I took my bundle and left the room on tiptoe. The house was dark, silent. I knew every board that creaked, every corner where the moonlight came through the cracks. But before leaving, I needed to do one thing, one last thing. I opened the door to her room slowly, without making noise. The moonlight came through the window, illuminating the bed where she slept. Her black hair spread on the pillow, her face finally at peace, without that constant expression of hatred. She seemed almost vulnerable. For a moment, I hesitated. She was my mother, after all, the only family I had now. But then I remembered all the times in front of the mirror, all the cruel words, all the years of humiliation. She moved in the bed, mumbled something. I froze, not breathing. But she just turned to the other side and continued sleeping. It was at this moment that I realized she had taken the pills, the sleeping pills that the doctor had prescribed after my father's death. The empty bottle was on the nightstand. She won't wake up so soon, I thought. It was my chance. I looked around the room. The mirror seemed to be watching me, reflecting the silver light of the moon, the same mirror that had witnessed my destruction for so many years. I approached it, looking at my own reflection. I was no longer that scared little girl. I was a woman now, a woman with a decision to make. My eyes fell on the heavy pillow, the one that was on the chair, the goose feather one that had been my grandmother's. My mother only used it on special occasions. She said it was too fine for everyday use. I picked up the pillow, feeling its weight in my hands. I looked at my mother sleeping, then at the pillow, then at the mirror. And it was as if the mirror showed me not only the present, but the past and the future too. I saw all those generations of bitter women. I saw my mother destroying me, as her mother probably destroyed her. I saw myself becoming like her if I stayed there. This has to end, I murmured to my reflection. The cycle needs to be broken. I approached the bed slowly, the heavy pillow in my hands, my heart beating so hard I thought it would explode in my chest. But then, at the last moment, I stopped. I couldn't do this. It wasn't who I was. It wasn't who I wanted to be. Slowly, I put the pillow back on the chair. I looked at my mother one last time. She seemed so at peace. Perhaps in her dreams, she was happy. Perhaps, in her dreams, she was the mother she never managed to be when awake. "Goodbye, Mom," I whispered. I left the room without looking back. But before leaving the house, I went to the living room. The large antique mirror was there, leaning against the wall. My mother had begun to move it, preparing for the move she was planning. I looked at it one last time. The same mirror that had reflected so many tears, so much humiliation, so much pain. In the fireplace, some embers remained from the fire my mother had lit earlier to ward off the night's chill. I picked up one of the half-burned logs. "This cycle ends here," I told the mirror. And in a quick movement, I hit the log against the glass. The noise was deafening in the night's silence. The mirror shattered, shards reflecting the moonlight throughout the room like fallen stars on the floor. Each piece showed a different, fragmented reflection. Broken. I remained paralyzed for a moment, expecting to hear my mother's footsteps, her scream of fury. But nothing came. The pills kept her in a deep sleep. I took my bundle and left through the front door, not caring about the noise. The street was deserted. The town was asleep. The night air was cold, cutting. But it was also free. I walked to the bus station. It was closed at that hour, of course. I sat on a wooden bench outside, hugging my bundle, waiting for dawn. I was scared, but also determined. When the first lights of day began to appear on the horizon, I heard the sound of an engine. It was the bus that made the route to Richmond. The driver, an older gentleman with gray hair named George, recognized me. "So early on the street, young lady?" he asked, surprised. I'm going to Richmond, I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. To visit an aunt. He looked at my bundle, at my face marked by tears. I think he understood more than I said. Get on, he said in a gentle tone. First trip of the day. There's almost nobody yet. I got on the bus, sat right at the back. When the engine roared and we began to move away, I looked out the window. Millsville was being left behind, its colorful houses diminishing in the distance. It was the last time I saw my hometown. The last time I saw my mother. The last time I was Eleanor Thompson. Because on that bus, that morning, I decided I would be born again. I would be another person. I would start a new life, without mirrors that could break my soul. The bus followed the dirt road, bumping, raising dust. Inside it, a 17-year-old girl was leaving behind not just a town, but an entire life of pain. And ahead, although she didn't know it yet, was a different future. A future that she herself would build, without distorted reflections to tell her who she was or how much she was worth. The mirror was broken. The cycle interrupted. And for the first time in many years, I breathed without fear. I arrived in Richmond with the sun already high in the sky. I had never left Millsville before, and that city, with its steep hills and old mansions, seemed like something out of a dream. It was like being in another world, in another time. I got off the bus, clutching my bundle to my chest. The driver, Mr. George, gave me a pat on the shoulder. Good luck, young lady, he said, with a gentle smile. It was the first time someone had wished me luck in my entire life. I had Mrs. Matthews's sister's address written on a small piece of paper. Oak Street, number 84, near St. Paul's Episcopal Church. I asked a lady who was selling candy in the square, and she pointed me in the right direction. I walked through those cobblestone streets, looking in wonder at the historic churches, at the university students passing by, chatting animatedly. It was as if I had left a prison and entered a world full of possibilities. When I finally found the house, I hesitated before knocking. What if Mrs. Matthews's sister wouldn't accept me? What if my mother had already woken up, discovered my escape, and was after me? What if... But before I could finish thinking, the door opened. A woman of about 45, with the same kind eyes as Mrs. Matthews, was standing there. You must be Eleanor, she said. My sister called me last night. She was worried about you. Her name was Sarah, and she was as different from my mother as day is from night. A widow, she lived alone in that big house, gave piano lessons to the neighborhood children. She welcomed me as if she had been expecting me for a long time, as if I were a dear niece coming to spend the holidays. I'll show you your room, she said, taking my bundle. Then you can tell me what happened if you want to, or not tell if you prefer. Sometimes it's best to leave certain stories behind. The room was small but cozy, with a window that overlooked a yard full of rose bushes. It had a real bed, with a crocheted bedspread, a dressing table with a mirror. Yes, another mirror. But this one seemed different, somehow gentler. And a bookshelf. They're from the time I taught literature at the high school, Sarah explained, seeing my curious look at the books. You can take any of them to read. Now come, let's eat something. You must be hungry after your journey. On that first day, I ate more than I had in weeks. Sarah didn't ask questions, just served more food, smiled when I complimented the flavor, talked about the city, about the traditional festivals, about her piano students. At night, lying in that strange but comfortable bed, I cried. I cried for everything I had left behind, for the father I lost, for the mother I never really had, for the stolen childhood. But I also cried from relief, from gratitude, from the timid hope that was beginning to be born. The next morning, Sarah knocked on the door. There's a call for you, she said. My heart froze. Would it be my mother? But how would she know where I was? It was Mrs. Matthews. Thank God you arrived safely, she said, her voice choked with emotion. I'm calling from Mrs. Zenaid's house, so no one gets suspicious. She paused. Your mother is telling everyone that you ran away with a boy, that you're ungrateful, that you left her alone after your father's death. I wasn't surprised. It was exactly what I expected from her. What should I do now? I asked. Stay there, replied the teacher firmly. My sister has already spoken with the principal of the state high school. You can finish your studies there. Afterward you decide. During the first months in Richmond, I lived in fear. Each time I heard a knock on the door, I thought it was my mother coming to get me. Each time I saw a familiar face on the street, I would hide. But gradually, the fear diminished. Sarah became more than a host. She became a friend, a mentor. She encouraged me to study, to read, to dream. You can be whoever you want, she would always say. Your past doesn't define your future. It was she who suggested the name change. If you really want to leave everything behind, maybe it's better to use another name, she said one day while we were having coffee. Not officially, of course, that would be complicated, but for the people here. And so, Eleanor Thompson died, and Elizabeth Miller was born. Elizabeth was the name of Sarah's mother, and Miller, well, it was a surname I chose from a book I was reading. I liked the sound, Elizabeth Miller. It sounded like someone confident, someone with a future. Life in Richmond was so different. At the new school, nobody knew about my past. Nobody looked at me as Mrs. Thompson's strange daughter. I was just Elizabeth, the new student, the piano teacher's niece. Gradually, I made friends. Real friends. I finished high school with good grades. I wanted to continue studying, go to college, but I knew I needed to work too. My father's pension and the few pieces of jewelry I brought wouldn't last forever. I got a job at the town library. It was a quiet job, surrounded by books, perfect for me. And it was there, among the bookshelves, that I met Harold. He was an engineering student at the university, always came to the library to study. Tall, with glasses, always carrying a pile of books larger than he could carry. In the beginning, we barely exchanged words. I was too shy, too marked by the past, to believe that someone could be interested in me. But Harold was persistent. He began to ask for my help to find specific books. Then he started to bring me small gifts. A handmade bookmark, a chocolate, a flower picked on the way. Gradually, I lowered my guard. On our first official date, he took me for coffee at Capitol Square. I was so nervous that I spilled half the drink on my blouse. Instead of mocking me, as my mother would have done, Harold just smiled. "Now we have a story to tell in the future," he said. That phrase, "in the future," gave me butterflies in my stomach. For the first time, I began to imagine that I could have a future with someone. We dated for 2 years. Harold knew there was something in my past that I didn't talk about, but he never pressured me. "When you're ready," he would say, "if you ever are, I'll be here to listen." It was after he proposed to me that I finally told him. Not everything, not the darkest details, but enough. I told him about the abusive mother, about the escape, about the change of identity. He listened in silence, holding my hands. When I finished, I expected to see pity, or worse, rejection in his eyes. "Elizabeth," he said, using the name I had chosen, "you are the strongest person I've ever met, and I love you even more for everything you've overcome to become who you are today." We got married in a simple ceremony in Sarah's house garden. Mrs. Matthews came from Millsville for the wedding, bringing news. My mother had sold the house and moved to Pittsburgh, as she had planned. No one knew for sure what had happened to me. Some said I had run away with a boyfriend, others that I had gone to work in New York. My mother wouldn't talk about it. It was a relief to know that she wasn't looking for me anymore, that I was truly free. Harold graduated in engineering and received a job offer in Mayfield, another historic town in Virginia, about 200 miles from Richmond. We decided to accept. It was the chance to start our life together, far from any ghost of the past. We arrived in Mayfield in 1971. I was 22 years old and pregnant with our first child. The town welcomed us with open arms. It was smaller than Richmond, somehow cozier. The people were friendly, curious about the newcomers, but never invasive. We rented a small house on Main Street, near the center. Harold worked at the engineering company. I took care of the house and studied at night. I had decided to take the teaching course, wanted to be a teacher like Mrs. Matthews, wanted to make a difference in other children's lives as she had made in mine. Our first child, Gabriel, was born in January 1972. When I placed him in my arms for the first time, I made a silent promise. You will never know the kind of pain I knew. You will grow up knowing that you are loved exactly as you are. It was a challenge at first, being a mother without having had a positive example. Sometimes I caught myself repeating phrases from my mother, using that tone of voice that had hurt me so much. In those moments, I would stop, take a deep breath, and consciously choose another path. Harold was a wonderful father, patient, present, loving. He showed me that raising children with love wasn't difficult, just give what we hadn't received. 2 years later, our daughter came, Clara, yes, the same one, who now organizes our Sunday lunches. And 3 years after that, our youngest, Thomas. Our family was complete. Life wasn't always easy, of course. We had financial difficulties, especially when Harold lost his job at the engineering firm during the crisis of the 80s. There were illnesses, misunderstandings, all the normal challenges of any family. But we faced everything together with the certainty that the love we had built was stronger than any problem. I graduated from teaching and began to teach at the town school. I loved my work. Each time I saw a shy, withdrawn child with that look I knew so well, the look of someone who suffers in silence, I made a point of giving special attention. I couldn't save them all, but I could make a difference for some, as Mrs. Matthews had done for me. The years passed. Our children grew up, went to college, built their own lives. Gabriel became a doctor, Clara a lawyer. Thomas followed in his father's footsteps and became an engineer. They all got married, all gave us grandchildren. I never went back to Millsville, never saw my mother again. Years later, I heard through a letter from Mrs. Matthews that she had passed away. It was strange to receive the news. I didn't feel sadness or anger, just an emptiness, a certain relief. The cycle had really ended. Harold and I grew old together in Mayfield. He left us 12 years ago, as I've already told you, leaving a huge void, but also a legacy of love that sustains me to this day. And as for the mirror? Well, it took a long time until I could look at any mirror without feeling that chill in my stomach, that echo of cruel words. But gradually, with the help of Harold's love, my children's smiles, the affection of my friends, I learned to see in the reflection not what my mother saw, but who I really was. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see a 76-year-old lady with wrinkles that tell stories of laughter and some tears, with white hair that has witnessed so many lives touched. I see someone who broke a cycle of pain and built, in its place, a cycle of love that continues through the children, the grandchildren, and who knows, one day, the great-grandchildren. And you know what's most incredible? No one ever knew. For everyone in Mayfield, I'm just Elizabeth Miller, the retired teacher, Harold the engineer's widow, the mother of Dr. Gabriel, lawyer Clara, and engineer Thomas. No one knows about the scared girl from Millsville, the torture sessions in front of the mirror, the night I ran away, leaving behind not just a house, but an entire identity. You are the first to know this story, and I tell this not to seek pity, nor to boast of my strength, but because I know there are many Eleanors out there, trapped in their own mirrors of pain. And I want them to know that it's possible to break the mirror. It's possible to start over. It's possible to transform the reflection of pain into a reflection of love. Today my life is full of small joys. I wake up early, around 5:30 in the morning. It's an old habit from when I still taught. Even retired for almost 15 years, I couldn't change this habit. And also, Is there anything more beautiful than seeing the sunrise in Mayfield? The first lights touching the stones of the sidewalks, the roofs of the centennial churches, it's breathtaking. My breakfast is simple. A homemade biscuit that I make on the weekend and freeze, freshly brewed coffee, sometimes a slice of cheddar that my neighbor Jack brings from his farm. I eat on the back porch, where I can see the yard with the rose bushes I planted, just like the ones that Sarah had in Richmond. It's my moment to talk to God, to be thankful for another day. Then, I take my walk to the square. My doctor, Dr. Stephen, insists that I need to move. Mrs. Miller, movement is life, he always says. And I obey, more for the pleasure of seeing the town waking up than for health, I confess. In the square, I meet my friends, Gladys, Marjorie, and Edith. We sit on the same bench as always, under the old oak tree, and catch up. We talk about our children, our grandchildren, comment on the town news, which aren't many, truth be told. Sometimes we remember the old days, when our husbands were alive and the town had those dances at the Mayfield Club. Good times those were, but today is good too, just different. I return home before the sun gets too hot. I take care of my plants, tidy up the house. I don't like to leave anything out of place. Prepare lunch. If it's a normal weekday, I have lunch alone, watching the news on the small television I have in the kitchen. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, my granddaughter Amy comes to have lunch with me. She studies architecture at the local college and has classes only in the afternoon on those days. It's a special time, just the two of us. She tells me about her projects, her friends, sometimes even about her little romances. And I listen, give some advice when she asks, but mostly just enjoy seeing this beautiful and intelligent young woman discovering herself in the world. In the afternoons, I read a lot. I have a shelf full of books that I've collected throughout my life. Some were gifts from Harold, others I bought with my own money when I started working. I especially like historical novels and biographies of strong women. I also read the magazines that my daughter Clara brings me when she goes to Richmond on business. 3 times a week, I go to the community center in the neighborhood. I volunteer in a project that helps children with difficulties at school. I teach basic math and English. The children call me Grandma Elizabeth, and that fills my heart with joy. When I see those little eyes shining as they understand a division or manage to read a difficult word, I feel that I am giving back to the world a little of the good I received from Mrs. Matthews and Sarah so many years ago. My children take turns visiting me during the week. Gabriel, my oldest, stops by on Mondays after his clinic. He's a very respected cardiologist in the region. He looks so much like his father, not just physically, but in his calm manner, his gentle gaze. He's married to Amanda, who is a nurse, and gave me 3 grandchildren. Peter, who is already in medical school, Caroline, who is finishing high school, and little Michael, who is 12, the joy of the house. Clara, my middle child, comes on Wednesdays. She's a lawyer, works a lot, but always finds time to have coffee with me in the late afternoon. She's a determined, strong woman, but with a huge heart. She married Robert, a university professor, and has 2 children, Amy, whom I've already mentioned, and Luke, who studies law in Richmond. My youngest, Thomas, lives a bit further away, in Lexington, where he works as an engineer in a large company. But he comes with his family every 2 weeks, always on Saturdays. He's married to Deborah, a teacher like I was, and has twin children, Matthew and Mary, who are 15, the image of their grandfather when he was young. And so, between the children and the 7 grandchildren, my week is filled with visits, calls, messages on the cell phone. Yes, I learned to use it, even though I found it complicated at first. But the most special moment is Sunday. As I told you at the beginning, that's when everyone comes to have lunch here. The house gets small for so many people, but I wouldn't trade this noise for anything in this world. Seeing my children talking, my grandchildren playing or discussing music or games, smelling the food we prepare together, hearing the laughter. It's in these moments that I'm sure it was worth it, that all the pain of the past has been transformed into something beautiful. Of course, not everything is rosy. I have my joint pains, especially when the weather changes. I miss Harold every day, especially at night when the house gets quiet. Sometimes I worry about the future, about health that isn't the same anymore, about the fear of becoming a burden to my children. And yes, I still have occasional nightmares. I still wake up sometimes with my heart racing, thinking I'm back in that room, in front of that mirror. But they're increasingly rare, and when they happen, I don't sink into fear. I get up, drink a glass of water, go to the living room, and look at the photos of my family on the wall. Those smiles remind me that the past is behind me, that I won. I have a small mirror on the dressing table in my bedroom. For many years, I avoided looking directly at it. Today, I can look at myself without fear. I see the wrinkles that time has drawn, the white hair that I haven't dyed for some years. Why try to fool time, right? The eyes that don't see as well as before. But I also see a woman who survived, who transformed her pain into love, who broke a cycle. This is who I am today, in Mayfield, my home for over 50 years. The same town that welcomed me when I arrived young, scared, pregnant, and full of dreams. The town where I raised my children, where I buried my husband, where I hope, when my time comes, to rest as well. And you know what's most beautiful? The certainty that I will leave a legacy of love, that my children, my grandchildren, and perhaps one day my great-grandchildren will not carry the weight that I carried, that they will look at their reflections and see beauty, strength, and infinite possibilities. Because that's what I learned after everything. What we see in the mirror is not just our image reflected. It's the reflection of all the words we've internalized, of all the love or lack of it we've received, of all the choices we've made. And I chose love. Every day, even in the most difficult ones, I choose love. My dear ones, if you're going through something similar to what I went through, if you're trapped in a cycle of pain as I was, I want you to know one thing. You don't need to carry this weight forever. That mirror that shows your flaws, that reflects only your failures and imperfections, be it real or metaphorical, can be broken. It's not easy, I know. When we live so long, hearing that we are not enough, that we are ugly, useless, or unworthy of love, we end up believing it. These words become our inner voice, follow us like a shadow, shape the way we see ourselves. But I can tell you, from my 76 years, that distorted reflection is not the truth about you, just as it wasn't the truth about me. Breaking the cycle of abuse is like breaking a mirror. Scary at the moment, it may seem like it will bring bad luck, but it's actually liberating. When I broke that mirror that night, so many years ago, it wasn't just the glass that I shattered. It was an invisible prison that kept me tied to the past, to the cruel words, to the pain. The secret I discovered is that we can choose our own mirrors. We can choose the people who reflect back to us not just our appearance, but our essence, our worth, our capacity to love and be loved. For me, those mirrors were Sarah, Harold, my children, my students, my grandchildren. People who showed me a version of myself that I didn't even know existed. A strong, worthy version, capable of giving and receiving love without conditions. When I left my mother in Millsville behind, I thought I was just running away. Today I understand that I was walking toward myself, the person I really was, underneath all those layers of fear and shame. I see so many people repeating the same painful cycles that their parents and grandparents lived. Children raised with harsh words who grow up to use those same words with their own children. It's like a curse passed from generation to generation. But this chain can be broken. I broke mine. If you live in an abusive relationship, be it with mother, father, husband, wife, anyone, know that you deserve more. That there is a world beyond those four walls. That there are people willing to help, to show a truer and kinder reflection of who you are. I remember every word my mother said in front of that mirror, every criticism, every humiliation. But today, Those words have lost their power, because I learned that our beauty is not in what others see, but in the love we can give. And in that, my dears, I am rich. I am the richest woman I know. I could have become like her. I could have repeated the cycle, treated my children as I was treated. But I chose another path. And every day that I see my children treating their own children with kindness and respect, I know I made the right choice. Life is like a mirror, you know? It reflects back what we put into it. If we put in love, we receive love. If we put in fear, we receive fear. I chose to put in love, even when all I knew was fear. Today, I am thankful for everything. Yes, even for the difficult moments, because they made me who I am. They taught me to value the small joys, a grandchild's smile, the warmth of the sun on the porch in the morning, a cup of coffee with a friend. They taught me to recognize abuse and to move away from it. They taught me that we are stronger than we imagine. If today I could speak to that scared girl in front of the mirror, I would say, "Hold on tight, my child. One day you will look at yourself and like what you see. One day you will be loved exactly as you deserve. One day this nightmare will end, and you will build a life so full of love that you'll hardly believe it." And to you, my dear ones who are watching me, I ask from the bottom of my heart, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Each subscription is like an extended hand to other people who are going through what I went through. It's a way of saying, you are not alone. There is hope. Each time you share these stories, you are helping to break a cycle of pain somewhere. And also tell me here in the comments, where are you watching from today? I'd love to know which corner of the country or the world you're connecting from. And if my story touched your heart, type the word reflection so I know you watched until the end, that you heard my complete story, and that perhaps, just perhaps, this has lit a spark of courage inside you. Do this now. Don't wait even one more minute, because life is too short to live trapped in mirrors that don't show who we really are. The time to break that mirror, my dear, is now.